Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. There might be a little bit of video challenge here going on. I thought I'd try and decorate, but Taz has decided he needs to eat the ornaments. Come on, sweetie. No. Taz has been with us now for going on about 3 weeks, and when he came to us, he was just under 7 pounds, I think it was. So we've been slowly getting him to switch from a dry foods diet to a canned diet, or else a meat diet from meat that we've cooked for ourselves, and we've given him leftovers because he has degenerative kidney disease, and he will, eventually that will be his end, but he's put on weight and he's put on a little bit of personality, and so he's not quite as compliant. He's a very gentle cat, very, very gentle, and also just very interested, so he really wants to know, and this is the first time I've seen his tail twitch, so he's annoyed with me. So welcome to Taz's world at Books at the Bottom of the Stairs with a plant. Today we are going to look at 2 books. They're both about comic books. One is an actual comic book, and this young woman, Jackie E. Davis, is from New York, and she is a comic artist that does most of her stuff online. She's one of the only, I think I only do one other Patreon person. There's so many Patreons I would love to do, but this woman really hits me in the heart. The book is Vulnerability is My Superpower, an underpants and overbites collection. And so I've been following her for about 18 months, and once a week, just as a regular subscriber, I get whatever she posts on Instagram. And then as Patreon, I occasionally, I think once a week, get something supplemental. Sometimes it's just 1 comic, sometimes it's a set of 4. And her project over the last year, she did 2 of them, but I do have the second one here. Her superhero is herself, as you can see. So she's making a bit of fun of the fact that she has an overbite, which she does in real life, and she's always just seems to be in her underpants when she's working or when she's relaxing at home, and it's just the most wonderfully sincere character. She's always doubting herself, but then somehow through the exploration of doubting herself or questioning the world around her, she finds an inner truth. And so I guess I probably should have got something to give you an explanation. This was a different one where she did a image every day for the month of October, I think it was. Yes, because it was Inktober, and the challenge was to do 1 per day. And she made it into this little black and white little booklet. And let's see. Whoa, your pupils are huge. You know, they say your pupils get bigger when you look at something you like. And the gentleman says, I must really like you. So then there's sort of love things. Hey, your pupils are really small, he says. I was looking at the window behind you. It's just, it's so everyday, it's so true. And I continually struggle with, self-confidence. There's another one that I really enjoy. And so it's not 100% black and white. And so many times she just hits the nail on the head, and so I really enjoy it, and it's authentic. I think that's one of the reasons I truly like it. So Jackie E. Davis is a young woman, and she does some other work in terms of comic book teaching, and I'm not sure what else she does, but that's also part of what we get to know as her comic book hero decides to quit her job and pursue a full-time life as a comic artist, and how, the transition from part-time work with part-time artists to full-time artists, and just so we get to know that journey as well. And her partner Pat is a charming addition to this adventure of hers, as are her stuffies, and she just loves a particular cow stuffy called Udderly, which It's funny too. I really enjoy it. I recommend this 100%. I will link below. Now you can get this through her site. I ordered it when it first came out, so I'm pretty sure she has a link to us. I think it's a self-published book, so I'll link to her, and then I will try to link to where you can purchase the book if you like. And you know, it's very expensive to try and self-promote yourself, so any support that she can get, but I'm sure even if you just do her Instagram, which I will also link, you will just be charmed every week by Jackie. All right, the other thing we have here, Taz, come on. Oh, is a totally different kind of adventure, comic adventure. It is Viminy Crow's comic book by Marthe Jocelyn and Richard Scrimger, with comics by Claudia Davila. And this is a middle grade book, middle reader book. It's a combination of just regular text, but periodically we get, let me see if I can get a good one for you, a full page one. Periodically we get a full page illustration that tells the story the way a comic book would. This is, in terms of two authors and an artist creating a book, this has really just a wonderful flow. There's not really a difference between one artist's writing style. They've really done a wonderful collaboration. Now, I was lucky enough to take my a creative writing course under the tutelage of Richard Scrimger, so sometimes I can hear his voice, and I have read his other books, so sometimes every once in a while there's something and I think, I bet that's a Richard Scrimger comment. And I think I've read Marthe Jocelyn, but I'm not 100% sure. Her name's not unfamiliar to me. We did this as a read aloud, and it was really wonderful that each chapter is by a different character. Wilder Wallace, who is a fan of Viminy Crow, who is a comic book hero. No, I'm sorry, Viminy Crow is the writer of the comic book, and the hero in the comic book is Flynn Goster, or Ghoster, I'm not sure. Addie Crow is the niece of Viminy Crow, and she has collaborated with her uncle on some of the aspects in the comic. And then there is a rat, a white rat called Catnip, who is also one of the heroes. So there's a comic fest happening in Toronto, and Addie's going in order to support her uncle, and her uncle is experiencing the non-delivery of his third comic. So she's gone to help her uncle, and the comic books aren't arriving, and he has tried to organize a deal with a comic book producer to take him on as part of their publishing stable. And so no comic books, big problem, on top of which the train, which features, I don't know, you can't really see it in the cover, but there's a great big train, and the train statuette thing that would go in the booth has become damaged, and Wallace is there just as a regular comic book nerd, and so he's just enjoying the festival. He comes into contact with Addie. Addie goes to the ladies' washroom. He follows her in. Turns out to be a portal, and the two of them get into the comic book. And so every time, it takes a while to figure out what's going on. So there's the superhero Flynn, and his sort of half nemesis, half fellow good guy is Adora Fortuna and her sidekick, Nellie. There's a bad guy, Lick Penny, and he's got a bad minion, Nevins, and Lick Penny has created these robots, and there's gold on board, and so there's the Red River guards, and there's all these servitude little robots. So this train is going along, somebody wants to steal the gold, and Flynn and Isadora are there to prevent that. I do not remember the reason why her hot air balloon is on the train, but it is on the train. So they're all headed from one end of the country to Toronto on this train journey. And by Wallace and Addie joining the comic, the plot of the comic has gone akimbo. And every time Wallace in particular does something, he skews the plot in such a way that there's multiple possibilities of where the plot could go, and the villain becomes more villainous and the hero becomes unhero, and the sidekick Isadora, she's not a sidekick, she's like a fellow good person, although she's got an opportunistic streak in her, so sometimes her behavior is not necessarily that's the news. I'm gonna have to stop for a minute. Editing point. Well, there's a lesson learned. Turn the radio off before you start filming. Piece of advice for anybody out there who forgets these sorts of setup details. So, where was I? Isadora is an opportunistic kind of hero. Sometimes she appears on the side of good and sometimes she appears on the side of bad. So, the whole point of the comic book people is to rob the train or prevent the train from being robbed. And the point of Addie and Wallace is to somehow get out of the comic, only when they finally, I'm not going to give it away, but because it's not totally, this comic does not go from point A to point B to point C. It's kind of it veers back and forth between ideas. So at a certain point they realize that they've got some work to do before they can actually leave the comic. And the only quibble that Steve and I had about this book was, we thought it was about the last quarter to the last third had one or two misadventures too many. We were ready for the end about, maybe 40, 50 pages before the end was in sight. And I also was thinking it to a certain point, I had lost some of the initial storytelling as to why the gold was on board, and what had happened to the idea that that this train was sort of invincible from theft. So that piece of the story got a little bit lost in all the misadventures, and most of the misadventures were very well told.
Look at you. Okay. Here, you can have a kiss in your film. Okay. Time to go.
Well, that kiss just made me forget what I wanted to tell you. I think that we would give this about a 4 to a 4.5 out of 5 in terms of successful books. I think that reading it to yourself, that sort of extra adventure parts that we struggled with as a read aloud would not be so noticeable. I think because we were reading it aloud, we were just more conscious of how long it took to get through the book. And pardon me, I think the other part as a read aloud was there were so many voices. Steve was pretty good with coming up with some voices as to what they should sound like, but I tended to read things much more even-keeled. But there were definitely a lot of very particular characters, and I think in your head you can create those different voices, but I don't have the skill set to make that happen. Well, because Steve's got a much better sense of voice, he was able to bring a lot better characterization to the experience. I think this is a top-ranked book. I have read many other things by Richard Scrimger, never being disappointed, and this doesn't disappoint me either. So, yeah. If it was just reading it for yourself without reading aloud, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 5. So I think just the reading experience may be detracted from it a tiny bit. Well, that's it for me. I guess I will see you next week. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'm a little bit behind on my reading, but who knows? It's always an adventure, right? So I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.